Good morning. It's Michael VanDervort, and I'm here to do another episode of Drive Thru HR. Our guest today is Tracey Lovejoy. Tracey sits in an unusual spot in the human resources ecosystem. She's situated at the intersection of ethnography, leadership, and real organizational change, and she studies how work actually happens, not how slide decks say it should be. So, Tracey, welcome to Drive Thru HR. How are you today?
Thank you so much, Michael. I am really happy because it's a joy to be here with you.
Tracey, start us off by telling us, explain what you do, because it is different. So tell us who you are, what's ethnography, and what do you do when you get called in by an organization? What's kind of the main theme of your practice?
I love the question. So what I do, I run a leadership development consultancy, and we specialize in the human side of transformation, which I believe will be very loud in our conversation today, because even though AI is all the headlines, it is the humans that are by far the most important in this age of disruption. Ethnography, you asked what ethnography is. Ethnography is a research method that's born out of the field of anthropology. That's the study of humans and culture, people and culture. For years, I leveraged my training in anthropology and research in high tech, really helping organizations think about people's adoption of technology. While I was there, I got very interested in the sparks of innovation, the people behind that, because I really sat in technology at the time that things like Agile were being introduced. And so there were all kinds of processes of innovation, but nobody was really talking about the humans that were so critical to innovation. And so when I left and started a consultancy, I was still a researcher, and I still get to use my research skills today. And so I really took time to do deep research with these folks that we talk about as catalysts today, people who have the just innate positive relationship to change and can't stop themselves from making positive change. So that ties to what we do today, because we support organizations that are either in transformation or that have that as part of their DNA. Mm-hmm. And when you are in the midst of disruption, or when this is just a way that you want to know you want to be, having the humans have the leadership support, having the skill training and development is essential. You know this better than most, right? So we get called in to really help support the leaders in coming to clarity on their agenda and aligning, because clarity enables agility. Right? We've known this forever, but it's all the more important. A lot of the tools that we've been training people in forever are just all the more important. Conflict is happening more and more as people run faster and faster. So how do I engage with conflict? How do I have a positive relationship with conflict and not end up in these weird interpersonal moments in the workplace? So I do what has always been done, but with that lens of deep understanding of change.
It's super interesting to me, going all the way back to the 1970s, mid-70s, right? When I was a poli-sci, political science major.
I was a poli-sci major, Michael. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I'm poli-sci major with the idea I was going to go to law school. Never did law school and wound up doing HR and labor relations instead. But I cannot remember the Karl Marx Communist Manifesto. I bought about 20 times because of poli-sci major. But I took several anthropology classes, and I remember reading, I can't remember if it was an article or a book, but it was called Eating Christmas in the Kalahari. And it was I can't tell you who wrote it or exactly what it was about, other than it was about sharing time and space with some tribe, as I recall, 50 years later or whatever, in the Kalahari Desert. And I was so blown away by it. And I considered for a hot moment anthropology, but then I decided to go with the more practical, I'm not sure, poli-sci. Right. Background or major with it. So anyway, when I saw that you worked adjacent to the industry, but in anthropology, I think you're the first person I've met that I'm consciously aware of that has a background in anthropology and somehow managed to turn it into an HR career or HR adjacent career. Yeah. So you mentioned Catalyst, and I have some other questions as we move along. I mean, and basically people who help transform is kind of what I heard if I simplify what you say, but explain the definition a little more for people, because it's a term we don't throw around in HR that much.
No, of course not. A catalyst is our name, right? And yet in HR, people have these are the innovators, the entrepreneurs, the change agents, right? Those sparks that when you ask leaders, they're like, yeah, I know a few of those. And so the deeper definition coming, from the research we did are folks that have a very positive relationship to change. They see opportunities all around them. It's like they're just constantly sensing for what's coming, what needs to happen, and they move into action often before they even know that they've identified it. And so these are really unicorns for us today. And there's so much we can learn from how they operate and why they successfully create change to really help us all be stronger in this moment.
Do you see companies, your clients, I guess, do you see them trying to actively identify this type of person? I think one of the questions is this is the smallest percentage of most organizations, right? This is not these are like unicorns. You don't see them very often, having never seen one.
Sure.
Are there companies, especially in the tech side, that are out there trying to identify these types of traits and bring more of these people in, or is that not is it more like you're lucky if you find one?
Yeah, we definitely have clients where we work with them to do identification and run programs. Mm-hmm. Being a catalyst, though, in reality, let me back up. The statistics come from other places. We have never tried to statistically quantify them. Mm-hmm. And so I have to pull them from other researchers' research as a proxy. In the years that we have been working with organizations since I did this research, what I have found is that catalyticness is really on a scale.
Okay.
I'm less bothered about the sense of being a 5 to 11% and more about if I had a magic wand, if I was empowered, I would have organizations listen to every report that's come out about the skills that people need for the future to help organizations continue to be relevant, and have high-po programs find these people and connect them into work that is related to the highest priorities of the company. And so are they officially a catalyst by that 5 to 11%, or do they exhibit these traits? And then we can help them make sure that they really round out that skill set. To me, that's far more important.
Yeah. I know I haven't asked you one of the questions I sent you yet, but I'm intrigued by this. So I work at a small consulting practice that has 15 people in our core team, and then we have a lot of 1099 folks that work extended. We operate under EOS. Are you familiar with EOS?
I know the EOS system.
So our owner, his title literally is visionary.
Nice.
And then we have an integrator as our president. So, and Phil, my boss, the guy I'm referring to, is brilliant. And I'm not saying this to suck up to him. He literally is brilliant. I've known him for a long time. We collaborated a lot before I ever came to work for him. That kind of stuff. Really, really love working for him. He throws off ideas though, like electrical, like a live wire at times.
That's right.
And it's sometimes
overwhelming.
You're like, I don't know how to.
Which one? Where am I focusing?
Exactly. Is that a normal, is that a catalyst, or are there, I'm trying to get my head around how do you work with that type of person? I find it challenging. I mean, it's rewarding, but it's challenging at times.
So many thoughts on this. So I love Gino Wickman's work. I'm the author, creator of what became the EOS system and this idea of visionary and integrators. For Catalyst, it's something I had to sit and reckon with as I was looking at the work is a catalyst is really both the visionary and the integrator.
Okay.
Right? They are the people that both have all these ideas and vision and they move into action.
Mm-hmm.
However, Wickman's work doesn't actually say that couldn't be true. So I don't know that I'm in a dispute with him because even in our work, we see that catalysts in executive positions really need their integrator, if we use that word, or their chief of staff or their second to help them shape and really implement what they're doing, right? Because someone needs to continue to be sensing and thinking and driving the plans. And so I love the model because even if your visionary is a catalyst and is moving into action, it's still helpful. There are also folks who are just the visionary side, and they cannot actually move into concrete implementation. And so that's the binary that he points to. Oh my gosh, absolutely needed. different than your question, which is wrapping your head around a catalyst, right? A catalyst are the folks around you. It could be you yourself that like they have all these ideas and then they're doing them. Like when you talk to the folks, it's, like they have the job, they maybe have started the side business, they are getting their master gardening, right? Like they just are like so excited by life and they're applying this lens of opportunity and change pretty much everywhere. When we work just with catalysts, to your point, just because you have this innate positive relationship to change doesn't make you good at actually implementing change. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the work we've done when we run strictly catalyst type training is to round out the skill set, to have them self-assess. Okay, where are you great? We have 20 skills that we help them think about and identify, and then we have a class that we have run regularly over time that really helps them use a particular project and slow down on that project and think through each of the steps of, have I written down the vision? Have I modeled the vision? Have I identified the right people that need to be part of this? Have I thought about the strategy of how I bring them along? Have I become aware of my iteration cycles and how destructive that is to other people when the clarity is going to be essential to moving forward? Mm-hmm. And so we know that these people are superpowers of manifestation, but in organizational settings, they can be highly disruptive.
Yeah. Phil Wilson wrote a book last year. It actually came out in April Fool's Day this year, or in 2025 rather. Sorry, and it's called Your Leadership Playbook, the Leadership Playbook. And in it, he tells a story about our internal workplace where I forget the 4-hour work. Who's the 4-hour work week guy? Tim something. I can't remember. Anyway, the guy that wrote the 4-hour work week book has a newsletter. And Phil saw a doorstop on this newsletter, and he sent it to somebody here he was on the road somewhere, and he said, these are really cool. We should get some of these, And the entire company wound up not 15 people, but there were 4 people working on trying to identify and get Phil's doorstops ordered as if it were the most important thing. And when he got back to the office, our chief of staff was like, you can never do that again. It's like, right. You don't understand how
the consequence.
And so he actually tells that story in his book and when he does speaking engagements about it. So I can totally relate, although it's great especially if you're in the catalyst role, if you have the idea and then you do it yourself. That's fantastic. And I haven't asked you a single question. Okay. So I want to talk a bit about AI. As I said in the pre-show, this sounds somewhat hyperbolic, but I literally don't think I've ever seen anything. And you worked at Microsoft and other places, so and your work is keeping the human in technology. How can CHROs, some of whom listen to us, align leadership development with AI in a way that fosters trust and cultural shifts? Yeah,
no matter what, any conversation with AI in an organizational setting has to be less about AI and more about the problems that it's being leveraged to solve. Mm. I really hope we can help the world transition the conversation. AI is a tool. So if we want folks, CHROs, any leader really, to help foster trust, the first is to talk about this as a tool that's going to solve problems. We have known for decades studying human behavior that adoption follows when you're solving something and making my life easier. Mm-hmm. But if it's use AI, which is kind of what's happened, first that's just going to create all the chemicals that cause the freeze or flight, which is counter to what we want. So acknowledging the AI as a tool and identify the problems in your organization that it's going to help solve and talk about it as such. Also help people set clear expectations of what people should be using AI for. Mm-hmm. Because there's, we're getting a little bit past this, but in the early days, there was this sense that AI was cheating, right? That if I use AI to do my job, is that going to prove that I'm not needed to do my job?
Yeah,
I saw. Help people understand. If you're investing in something like Copilot in the organization, have sessions that tell them how to use it, get them more comfortable with prompts, have them talk about it with one another so it's not a little secret that you're using AI to write proposals or to help with your code or whatever the case may be.
I spent a lot of time thinking about this. No, I remember when it came out in 2023, there was an initial debate about whether it was ethical.
Right.
Or not to, for example, if you're a job candidate, to use ChatGPT or whatever tool to write a job, an application letter, right? An introductory letter, cover letter. And I'm like, if you can write a quicker cover letter, why not? Well, some people said, well, but it augments, it makes them sound smarter than they are. You're not seeing the real writing. You're not seeing the real person. I'm like, neither does the ATS really. That probably is. I mean, it's kind of, there's a lot of things happening behind the scenes, and it's not all person to person, but there were some very pointed discussions about that on places like LinkedIn and stuff.
Yeah.
The other thing that I early on heard a lot of was that immediate, if I could use this to say build content, to write articles or whatever. I pay a freelance person, I can replace them with this bot. Okay, you can. There's implications, and you fast forward a couple years later, the writing isn't as great as you might want, and blah blah blah, and people can detect it. But it's the thought processes that, like, individuals, right? Like, I'm an HR person and I know a machine wrote this, or I think a machine wrote this, and so I'm going to discard that person, or I'm going to replace I was like to that same guy that said I could replace the writer. No, figure out how to help her understand how to use the tool to create more content for you. That's right. In other words, don't replace the person, augment the person, right?
That's right.
And like, I think organizations struggle because there's the CFO point of view and this, the efficiency, blah, blah, blah. So, like, I guess when you're in your practice, you're helping people think around these types of things and build in guardrails to, how do you keep the human in? What do you tell your clients on this stuff?
Yeah, I'll reframe the question slightly. You and I were chatting before, and I mentioned I just am wrapping up a round of research where our question was big. It was spurred by AI, but it was, how is transformation transforming?
Right.
And one of the things that we saw is an age-old reality since change management became a thing, is that you have to put humans at the center of your strategy. And more importantly, is that humans are the derailer of transformation right now. It's not the lack of AI, getting put in, although I understand the risks there. It's the way that things are happening in organizations and humans not be given the right training, the right messaging, the right leadership to ensure that transformation can take root. And so when you ask, what are we telling? It is more necessary than ever for our predominant amount of resources to be spent on the humans that are still in your organization, because your transformation will fail without that focus. Of course.
I'm just recording a podcast. I'll be about another 10 minutes. I didn't think you were going to be here today. Sorry. Thank you. Anyway, I'll have to do a little more editing than usual. Sorry, Tracey.
Of course. No problem at all. No, it's real life.
Let's pick back up. So one of the actual questions I sent you have something that you talk about that's the 10, and that is why AI success is 10% tech, 20% workflows, and 70% human adaptation via reskilling, right? So tell us about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds very technical. And I believe, you probably know the origin, that this came from research that McKinsey was doing long before AI became the trend right now. But it was looking at where rollouts, any advanced analytics that we can now apply to AI today, were failing and where they saw things working. And so it's kind of a number-driven way to say that we have to put most of our time and resources into humans. Right? And yet organizations are really doing the opposite. And so the 10-20-70 is a way to really help people try to visualize. 10% should be on the AI itself, building the algorithm. 20% should be on the technology and the processes to support that. How does this get integrated into my CRM? How do I build out the enablement of me as an end user being able to interact with this? And then the 70% is focused on humans, because as I said, this is the number one derailer we're seeing today. Do people trust AI? Do they understand why it's benefiting them? Are they incentivized to use that? Have you trained them on the benefits of this particular thing? Are there workflows in place, right? Is leadership modeling the use of these things? The question, is there accountability or measurement if this is really something that you want to believe in? So it seems like kind of a scary number to say what we've always known. Focus on the behavior, focus on the humans.
I didn't read the full article. I kind of skimmed the website the other day, but I saw the headline, and I forget exactly what the spend is, but Walmart just announced a program. I don't know if you've seen this or not, but Walmart just announced that they're going to train like their entire workforce at some level on AI and the use of AI and how, and Walmart, while it's always perceived as that, former Southern sleepy retailer, they're actually a huge technology company in addition to being a huge bunch of other different kinds of companies. And so there's that approach where they seem to be, at least, like I said, I didn't read the article, but the general gist and tone of it was like they were putting people first.
Yes.
And not to knock a competitor of theirs, and I'm not saying they're not, I haven't seen as much detail, but like Amazon has had a number of reductions here, and their CEO has talked about AI-driven kind of company and this and that.
Yes.
And if you just contrast those two approaches, it seems like, that's the spectrum. And for smaller companies, those are monolithic, Fortune 5 or whatever they would be companies.
Right.
That have all the resources they need to do anything they want.
Yeah, the performative layoffs are a pet peeve of mine that technology was, responding to the street saying AI should have less jobs, and they took it as an opportunity for layoffs. And I find that to be really not in line with my sense of what is integrity. Yeah. I appreciated in the last round of Amazon layoffs that it actually said these aren't AI driven.
Okay.
Like they're finally acknowledging that this is what they wanted to do, period.
And they had a very, during COVID, very ambitious hire. There's a lot of forces at work here, right? It's not one single thing.
Yeah, but the impact of fear of calling it AI and then all the other organizations looking, oh my gosh, do we have to do layoffs for AI?
Yeah.
I was angry, frankly. I was angry.
So you've kind of articulated, keep the human first. Are there? I know, because we're 6 minutes left. So I could talk to you for a couple hours.
Let's
apparently. Go. Are there pointers that you share out about this kind of stuff? Because it's certainly topical for any organization.
When you say pointers, guide me just a little bit more. Pointers.
Guide in how to keep the human in. How to keep the human. How do you do that successfully? Sorry, I'm not.
Oh, yeah. How do you do that successfully? You invest money and time into human development. So I think what you again, I haven't read the article that you mentioned either, but saying we are going to train everyone. It's a great example, right? Like training is a financial investment. It's a time investment. If you have new strategic priorities that you're rolling out in response to AI, have time for your leadership team to be really getting together and be doing that work. Ensure that there's accountability, that leaders themselves have to be building from those new strategic priorities, building visions for their department, aligning their people, right? You sent a question that we may not specifically get to, but you were like, where would you point people to slow down? That's where they need to slow down, is you need to make sure that your workforce is clear to the extent that you can be. You have to be as transparent as you can so that they trust what you're talking about in an age that they're not sure what to trust. And then encourage them to have the space and time to really align so that they can move faster.
And that will be a great pivot point to bring us to it, because I want to touch on your book. I'm not sure when it came out and I haven't read it, but I love the title, and plus it lets me swear on my own podcast with permission. So your book is called, it's blunt, and this is kind of a trend, but it's Move Fast, Break Shit, Burnout, the Catalyst Guide to Working Well. So let's talk quickly about burnout, because we only have a couple minutes, but let's talk about burnout and moving fast and what the implications are, because it helps and hurts organizations, just like the AI approach does, I guess.
Yep. And so the number one thing we see today as the pace of everything is increasing is when people don't have clarity, they're just running in multiple directions. You and I were having a discussion about that, where you can have a CEO that just throws out ideas and it creates a whirlwind across the organization, right? And so clarity enables agility. I just can't say that often enough. And so making sure that leaders take the time to say, this is what's clear, and acknowledge what's not. Make sure you consider the change capacity of your organization, not just actively engage in change management, but how much change are they ready for? And can you give them additional skills that will increase that change capacity? Are you thinking about resilience? Are you thinking about decision-making frameworks? Are you helping them with strategic thinking, which is really the role of the human increasingly as AI supports us? And so as we're clearer on what the human role is, which you keep, helping us come back to, make sure that they're empowered and trained to do that work to the best of their ability. And that's what's going to help a company that is here today be here next year.
We have a again, Phil, not to make this show about Phil, but Phil wrote a book a few years ago called Approachable Leadership. He did a big study on leadership, what makes leaders successful, and he came back and identified the chief characteristic was approachability, not empathy necessarily or likability, but approach. Like I can come up to you as my boss and share something with you, knowing you're going to listen and respond. You might not give me the answer, that kind of thing, right? And it seems to me like that's a key. Those types of behaviors, certainly empathy doesn't hurt, nor does likability or many other traits that people have. But the idea that you can talk to people about this.
Right.
Let's wrap, Tracey, with this. First of all, I'd love to have you on again at some point, but we'll have to wait a couple of months.
Of course.
Yeah. If you're talking to a CHRO, and there's a lot of pressure right now. I mean, the economy, things change, all the factors, the dynamic stuff we've been talking about. Who feels pressure to move fast? What do you tell them to slow down first, and kind of how do you approach that?
Yeah, I'm going to tell them to take time to get clear on your vision and strategy that aligns to the organizational priorities. Take time to align your leadership team to that and ensure they understand their role, and assess your leadership ability for change leadership. Mm-hmm. And then once you know where they are, help fill the gaps and hold them accountable, right? It is the learning, the resilient, the adaptable organization that is going to be here next year. And that starts with leadership.
Very cool. With that, I'll give you a two-part ending final question. Number one, any final thoughts you want to share? And then to take us out, tell people where they can find you, whether it's internet, social media, LinkedIn, whatever.
100%. So final thought in the rise of AI, HR leaders, you are literally, with technology, the most important part of the organization to ensure the relevance of your company tomorrow. So if you're feeling disempowered, know that, and then find the clear way to articulate why what you can offer is that strategic imperative and advantage for relevance tomorrow. Finding me, reach out on LinkedIn. Tracey Lovejoy, love to connect with folks there, or feel free to check out our website at catalystconstellations.com.
Awesome. And we will have those in the show notes, so they'll be available to link through if you're listening via your iPhone or whatever. We'll have those so you can look at the website, and we'll have them there. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. I'm very, very, like I said, I sincerely mean I want to have you back on because there's a lot of stuff we didn't cover, and
so many.
But thanks so much for doing Drive Thru HR with us today, and I'm going to go ahead and end the show. So have a great rest of the week.
Bye for now.